My name is Manfred Stein. I'm responsible for the bone ship models in the International Maritime Museum in Hamburg, and I should like to show you some of the most precious one which we have in our collection. We start here with a model of a hulk. That's a prison which they used during Napoleonic times in England to store away prisoners, since all prisoners and so on were overcrowded, and if you look inside you can see poor prisoners which are manufacturing bone ship vessels, bones from their daily meals, and this is mostly cattle bone. And as concerns the hulks, there is a very interesting story which I'm going to tell you, which found its place in German literature. It is of a young lady from Kiel area, which was crossing the path of Napoleon. And I'm now going to cite from my book on bone ships. This book is on the 11 best models of this collection. So let me just go to this little chapter. An incident in the hulks on the Thames, Chatham, was mentioned in German literature. At the end of 1809, a young girl, Dora Kiel of Oppendorf near Kiel, daughter of a ship owner, went to see the hulks with her father. The English public was allowed every day to pass by the prisoners of war and look at them like curious animals. The young girl made a sign by hand to one of the prisoners. It was the French Navy officer Victor Bassam. The following day she came back again and threw a little letter through the grating of his prison. Only one word was written in the letter: courage. And one night he was roughly scared from sleep by the light of a torch falling on his face. They moved to the exit of the ponton, that's the French name for hulk, after stepping over the body of a sentry prone on the floor, handcuffed and gagged. Victor Bassam and Dora Kiel married, and Bassam became captain on the ships of his father-in-law. The paths of Dora Kiel, Victor Bassam, and Napoleon crossed in 1815. After his defeat at Waterloo, Napoleon withdrew to Rochefort, which is south of La Rochelle in France, to embark on a ship to America. Bassam described his plan as follows: in the hold between two rows of brandy casks, 5 empty barrels were stored, which had been upholstered inside. In the event of an inspection, 5 persons could hide in these barrels. Fresh air came into the barrels through concealed tubes. However, Napoleon changed his plan. When Victor Bassam was summoned to Napoleon, he thought that the operation, the escape to New York, was due to start the next day. However, Napoleon disclosed to him, "I have decided to go to England, and tomorrow I will board the Bellerophon," which is a British man of war. So that's the chapter on the hulks, which you find in German literature. Now let's have a look at some of our bone ship models, and I will start in this corner with HMS Ajax. The model shows a third-rate warship with 80 guns, and just short notice on the model itself. The figurehead represents a classical warrior, presumably Ajax of Greek mythology. Through the lover's hole, the Marines climbed to the fighting top to serve as sharpshooters. Fighting tops are these platforms, and the sharpshooters climbed up to these places in an engagement with the enemy. During the Battle of Trafalgar on October 21st, 1805, one of these sharpshooters, positioned on the fighting top of the mizzenmast of the French Redoutable, managed to hit Admiral Nelson in the shoulder. As everybody knows, Nelson died the same day from the after effects of the gunshot wound. So a very funny ship you see here in this vitrine, the lower one. And the story with this is due to a generous gift during December 2014, the prisoner of war bone ship model collection of the International Maritime Museum increased to 32 specimens. After detailed inspection of the model by Professor Tam and Manfred Stein, a professional cleaning and restoration of the new accrual was decided. In a little workshop on deck 9, which I had from that time in 2015 of the museum, the model was scrutinized, cleaned and repaired. The bowsprit gear needed substantial repair. The rigging was generally loose and some fractures had to be glued. Obviously, the model was built in several construction phases. The first by POVs during the Napoleonic Wars, which professionally assembled the underwater part of the model. And the second part was performed after the Napoleonic Wars, with building the main deck and parts of the rigging. The planks, and if you look more closely, the planks consist of historic piano keyboard ivory. The stern is built improperly, just if you could go around, is built improperly by single pieces of bone. The masts and dead eyes seem to be added during the 20th century. They seem to originate from modern model making. Rigging of the two top yards is historically incorrect. Ships of the Napoleonic times had only one yard on the topmast. And here you see on the topmast two of these yards. So this is a very curious model, but we decided to put it here in the exhibition to show our visitors what can be done or can be shown with models. And as I said, the lower part until the black plank, this seems to originate from Napoleonic Wars, and later on came the other parts. A very nice bone ship model is this one, La Courageuse, a British frigate with 50 guns. According to the literature, this bone ship model dates from 1810. It was exhibited in Paris in 1815 and in London in 1850. There was a 32-gun French frigate Courageuse, which was built in 1778 in Rochefort and seized by the Royal Navy in 1799. It cannot be verified whether this model was of this La Courageuse. Now if you look in detail below the wooden base plate, we see the mechanism of gun retraction. In the end, I will show you in one model which we recently acquired, the gun retraction mechanism as it looks normally. The back of the ship features many classicist elements. The margins of transom are decorated with male figures. Midships we see the British trophies consisting of shield, crown, flags and guns. So that should be for this. And now we come to one of our models which I like most. It is this one. This model it's his first-rate warship with 118 guns, and this model is one of the most beautiful and accurately built bone ships in the Peter Tam collection. Maybe thanks to the cover of the Bell Yard, we are able to admire this bone ship model in its bright white even today, and can study in detail the original rigging of plated and hand-laid organic material. Whether the builder of this ship model used original plans is questionable. The transom of the model indicates the stylistic similarity to HMS Victory in her original version of 1765. The decorated transom has 3 floors. The lower floor consists of 9 windows divided by crossbars made from straw. They are framed with edged pillars. The lower floor of HMS Victory also featured 9 windows framed by edged pillars. The ornately carved figurehead, a bearded warrior with bronze sword and buckler, embellished with a blossom in his right hand, stands on a pedestal decorated with shingles. He has a weaving cape on his shoulders and wears an antique helmet with crista, a corselet and a Union Jack, and the Union Jack attached to the flagstaff in an earlier restoration has been replaced by a historically appropriate handmade flag. You see at the end the white ensign, which I replaced. This is done in my workshop, showing a handmade, correct white ensign. So then we have our HMS Chesapeake. So this model represents the HMS Chesapeake. The original ship, the US frigate Chesapeake, was launched on December 2nd, 1799 at the Gosport Navy Yard, now the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, Virginia. She was captured in a battle by HMS Shannon, Captain Brooke, on June 1st, 1813 off Boston. Captain Lawrence of the Chesapeake was killed in the engagement. Accounts of the battle indicate that the stern quarters of the Chesapeake took a good bit of damage from the Shannon's first shots, which would have eventually required rebuilding. The ship was brought to Halifax, Nova Scotia, repaired and later integrated into the Royal Navy. The bright white of the figurehead represents an American heraldic animal, the bald eagle. However, the US frigate Chesapeake did not have a figurehead, according to thorough research. It would appear that the figurehead was an amendment to the HMS Chesapeake, whereas the stern decorations of the original US frigate Chesapeake consisted merely of the letters U and S, which were carried in 2 stars to represent United States. The stern decorations of the repaired ship, the HMS Chesapeake, are more laborious. Reclining bearded male, when you see at the stern, reclining bearded male, is a symbol of a river god. The Chesapeake is a bay, but could be thought of as a very large river. The Shannon is a river in Ireland. The Ress is a symbol of victory. The crossed flags are those of 2 nations. It would appear that the stern decorations are an allegorical reference of the battle between the Chesapeake and the Shannon. This model is the only one in the POW Bone Ship collection made from whale bone. And last not least, with this model, I should like to point out that the present knowledge which we have on this bone ship model is from cooperative research between the Hamburg Museum and the Hampton Roads Naval Museum in Norfolk, and the curator there is Hunt Lewis. So, as I indicated before, we look in the end at a model which shows the gun retraction mechanism. When you look at this little model, this we acquired in November last year, and you can remove the weather deck, and then you can have a look into the interior of the bone ship model. The model itself was, as you see here, no mast, nothing, but for our museum purposes, to show our visitors how it works with the gun retraction, we thought it would be good to have such a model. You see the 2 springs, and when you pull at the cord in the stern region, then you pull against the pressure of the springs and the guns get inside. This is, to my knowledge, one of the very seldom occasions that you can see worldwide such a model. So this is, it represents an early 19th century French Napoleonic prisoner of war wood and bone ship model for a 74-gun frigate. But as I said, it was never finished.